The twin suns were setting over the alien colony of Virelon, casting long red shadows across the training ground. A crowd had gathered again, their laughter echoing like cruel music. At the center of the circle stood a small alien girl named Lyra. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dying light, silver and pale blue, but her arms ended in smooth stumps where hands should have been. She tried to hide them behind her cloak, but the others always noticed. "Look, the no-hands freak is watching again," one alien shouted, his long tail swishing with amusement. The others burst into laughter. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry, not this time. She had learned that tears only made them laugh harder. From the far edge of the ground, a quiet figure stood watching. A human, Eli, a mechanic from the outer docks. He was taller than the aliens, rough-faced, with scars that told stories of old battles and long work hours. He had come to fix a power relay nearby, but when he saw the crowd, he stayed. Something in the little girl's eyes reminded him of Earth, of every child who had ever been told they weren't enough. Lyra tried to walk away, but one alien boy blocked her path. "Where are you going, little broken one? You think you can fight like us?" He kicked the sand toward her face. She stumbled but didn't fall. The laughter grew louder. Someone threw a small stone. It hit her shoulder. Eli's jaw tightened. He dropped his toolbox quietly and stepped closer, staying in the shadows. He wanted to help, but humans were not allowed to interfere in alien affairs. The last time someone tried, they were sent off-world. Still, watching this cruelty tore at something deep inside him. Lyra turned and ran, her cloak fluttering behind her like torn wings. The others laughed until she disappeared into the narrow alley that led toward the workers' district. The crowd began to scatter, still joking, still heartless. Eli stood there for a long moment, staring at the path she took. Later that evening, the colony lights dimmed to rest mode. Eli walked through the lower streets, past flickering neon signs and the hum of machines. He found himself outside a small food stall where the workers gathered. Lyra was there, sitting alone beside the trash unit, staring at the stars through the open dome. She didn't notice him at first. He sat down a few meters away, pretending to check his repair tablet. For a while, they said nothing. Only the soft hum of the city filled the air. Then, in a quiet voice, she said, "They say I was born broken. Maybe they're right." Eli looked up. "No one's born broken," he said softly. "Some just haven't been given a chance to prove what they can be." Lyra turned, her large silver eyes shining with surprise. "You're a human," she whispered. "Why would you care?" Eli gave a small smile. "Because I've seen people like them before. Back home we had those who laughed at others too. But we also had those who built, who fixed, who gave hope. And I'm one of them," she blinked. "Fix, you mean machines?" Eli nodded slowly. "Machines, ships, maybe even people." For the first time, Lyra smiled faintly. Her small shoulders relaxed. "I wish someone could fix me," she said, her voice trembling. Maybe then they'd stop laughing. Eli looked at her hands, or where her hands should have been, and something in him shifted. He had repaired broken engines, patched metal torn apart by plasma storms, even rebuilt drones from scrap. But this was different. This was about dignity, about humanity, even if she wasn't human. He stood up, looking toward the endless stars. "You know," he said quietly, "on Earth we had a saying, even the stars were born from dust. Maybe your hope can be built the same way." Lyra looked at him, confused but curious. "You talk strange, human," she said softly. He chuckled. "Maybe, but I make strange things too. Things that work when others say they can't." Before she could ask more, a warning siren echoed in the distance, the nightly lockdown signal. The colony gates would close soon. Eli picked up his toolbox and said, "Go home, little one. Don't let them see your tears. Someday, they'll look at you differently." Lyra nodded, clutching her cloak tighter. She watched him walk away through the narrow streets, the light from his torch flickering like a tiny sun in the darkness. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. The image of the girl's tearful eyes haunted him. He stared at the pile of broken machine parts in his workshop. Then he opened his design pad and began to sketch. Rough outlines of arms, not ordinary ones, but something new, something alive with starlight and strength. As the artificial dawn rose, the first lines of his plan glowed softly on the screen. He whispered to himself, "No hands, no hope? We'll see about that." And far across the colony, in her small room, Lyra dreamed for the first time of touching the stars. The next morning began like every other. Metal dust in the air, loud engines rumbling through the factory tunnels, and the steady pulse of machinery that powered the alien colony of Virelon. But for Eli, the human mechanic, everything felt different now. He couldn't stop thinking about the little alien girl with no hands. Her name echoed in his mind. Lyra. The way she looked at the stars, the way she tried not to cry. It had stirred something in him that hadn't woken for years. Eli's workshop sat at the far edge of the colony, half forgotten by the main engineers. The walls were covered with hanging tools, old metal scraps and cracked light panels that flickered like fireflies. To most, it was just a junkyard. To Eli, it was a place where broken things found second chances. He sat at his workbench staring at his sketch from last night. The design was rough, two slender arms powered by a glowing core made from salvaged reactor dust. It was impossible by alien standards, but humans had always done the impossible. He whispered to himself, "If I can make this work, maybe she'll never be mocked again." Eli began to gather parts, servo motors from old loader bots, wiring from damaged drones, and joints from disassembled exosuits. The pieces didn't fit at first, but he kept working, cutting and shaping them with careful precision. Sparks danced in the air as he welded the fragments together. The scent of burning metal filled the workshop. Hours passed. Sweat dripped down his forehead, and his hands trembled from exhaustion. But every time he thought of stopping, he remembered Lyra's trembling voice. "I wish someone could fix me." Just before midday, the heavy door of his workshop creaked open. Eli froze. He expected a supervisor or security officer, but instead a small shadow slipped through the doorway. It was Lyra. Her cloak was torn and her eyes were wide with fear. "They said humans can't help us," she whispered, glancing around nervously. "If they see me here, they'll punish me." Eli smiled gently. "Then we'll make sure they don't see you." He pulled down the shades and dimmed the lights. "Now, I want to show you something." He turned on a small work lamp, and in the center of the table lay two metallic frames. Unfinished arms, thin as vines, with tiny energy nodes glowing faintly. Lyra gasped. "Are those for me?" "They will be," Eli said softly. "If we can finish them together." She looked confused. "But I can't help." "I have no hands," Eli shook his head. "You have something better. You have courage. And courage builds everything worth building." For the first time she smiled just a little. Eli guided her closer and showed her the designs. He explained how the metal would move, how the circuits would mimic nerves. His words were simple, his tone gentle, like a father teaching a child to read. Lyra listened with fascination. But outside the workshop, the colony wasn't quiet. A tall alien named Commander Vex, the supervisor of human labor, noticed that Eli hadn't reported to the repair station. He sent a message through the intercom. "Human 42 Eli, report immediately. Unauthorized work is forbidden." Eli ignored it. He tightened the bolts, connected the circuits, and powered the small energy core. A faint blue light filled the room. The metal arms twitched slightly, like they were waking from a long sleep. Lyra gasped and covered her mouth, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's alive," she whispered. Eli smiled proudly. "Not yet, but soon." Suddenly the door slammed open. Vex stormed in, his armor gleaming and his tail whipping the air. "What is this, human?" he growled, eyes landing on Lyra. "You dare bring one of us here? You think you can fix what nature made broken?" Lyra shrank back, trembling. Eli stepped between them. "She's not broken," he said calmly. "She's waiting to be made whole," Vex hissed. "You forget your place. You are a servant, nothing more." He ripped the power cord from the wall and the faint light of the arms flickered out. "If I see this again, human, you will be shipped back to Earth in chains." He turned and left, the heavy door slamming behind him. The workshop fell silent. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "He's right. I shouldn't have come. You'll get in trouble because of me." Eli looked at her gently. "I've been in trouble all my life, kid, but never for the right reason. Until now." He picked up the broken arm frame and turned it over in his hands. "They think it's over," he said softly, a fire in his voice. "But they don't know humans. We build again. We always build again." Lyra looked at him in awe. "You really won't stop?" Eli shook his head. "Not until you can lift your hands to the sky." Outside, the winds howled across the red dunes, carrying the echoes of alien laughter. But inside that broken workshop, a new sound began, the slow, steady hum of human hope being reborn. As the lights dimmed for night, Eli returned to his desk. He opened a new page on his design pad and wrote one word across the top in shaky handwriting: Stardust. Because he knew somehow that ordinary metal would never be enough to build a miracle. The night sky above Virelon was filled with two moons, one pale and one burning red. The colony slept beneath them, unaware that in a small workshop at the edge of the settlement, something extraordinary was beginning. Eli sat at his desk, eyes half open, a cup of cold coffee forgotten beside him. The silence around him buzzed with the hum of incomplete machines. The broken prototype of Lyra's mechanical arms lay on the table, blackened wires, cracked plating, and fragments of glowing crystals. He ran his hand over the metal slowly, whispering, "We'll get it right this time, little one." Just then, a soft knock echoed from the door. Eli frowned. No one visited this place after curfew. He opened the door a crack and froze. There she was, Lyra. Wrapped in her thin cloak, shivering slightly, her bright silver eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "You shouldn't be here," Eli said quickly, glancing down the hallway. "If they see you—" "I had to come," she interrupted softly. "They took my room away. They said, people like me waste food?" Her voice broke on the last word. "I didn't know where else to go." Eli's chest tightened. He stepped aside. "Come in." She entered quietly, her bare feet leaving faint prints of dust on the floor. The warmth from the workshop lights seemed to soften her trembling. She looked at the table where the arms lay and whispered, "You're still working on them?" Eli nodded. "I don't quit easy." She walked closer, her eyes wide with wonder. "They look alive." "Not yet," he replied. "But one day they will move like real hands, maybe even better." For a while silence filled the room, comfortable this time. The human and the alien child stood side by side, surrounded by broken tools and half-finished dreams. Lyra looked up at him and asked, "Why are you helping me? We're not even the same kind." Eli leaned back in his chair and gave a tired smile. "Because being human isn't about what species you are. It's about what you choose to do when you see someone hurting." Her eyes glistened. "On my world," she whispered, "they say humans are dangerous. They destroy everything." He chuckled softly. "Maybe, but sometimes we build too." Lyra stared at the glowing fragments again. "Then build me," she said quietly. "Please." Those words struck deep. He nodded, feeling the old spark of purpose return. "All right, but we'll need something stronger. Something that can hold star energy." She tilted her head. "Star energy?" Eli pointed at the cracked meteor shard sitting on the shelf. "That rock fell from the outer rings. I think it's more than stone, it's alive with cosmic particles. If we can fuse it into the core, your arms won't just move, they'll shine." Lyra's voice trembled. "Shine?" He smiled. "Like the stars you love so much." They worked together that night. Eli guided her step by step, showing her how to connect wires with her elbows, how to use her shoulders to steady the clamps. Though she couldn't touch, she learned to assist, her laughter soft and nervous but growing more confident. For hours they built. The hum of the fusion welder mixed with the faint sound of her excitement. Every spark that leapt from the metal seemed to light up the darkness around them. But beyond the door, danger waited. Commander Vex had ordered patrol drones to search the lower districts. A metallic buzz echoed outside as one passed by the window. Lyra froze, panic in her eyes. Eli put a finger to his lips. "Don't move." They stayed still as the light from the drone swept over the workshop walls. The machine paused, scanned the area, and moved on. Only then did Lyra exhale, her voice barely a whisper. "They're hunting you now. Because of me." Eli smiled faintly. "Let them hunt. I'm already where I want to be." Something in his calmness made her tears fall silently. No one had ever protected her before, not even her own people. After the danger passed, Eli lit a small lantern and placed it near the table. "We'll finish tomorrow," he said. "You can stay here tonight." Lyra hesitated. "You mean, sleep here, with all these machines?" He nodded. "Machines don't judge. They don't laugh either." She laughed softly, curling up near the warm plasma coil. The hum of the workshop was like a lullaby. Before she fell asleep, she whispered, "Eli, do you think the stars can forgive broken things?" He looked at her for a long time before answering. "The stars are made of broken things, Lyra. That's what makes them shine." By the time she drifted to sleep, Eli was already working again, soldering tiny circuits. mixing traces of stardust into molten alloy. The light reflected in his tired eyes looked almost like a promise that no cruelty in the galaxy could silence the will of a human heart. Outside, the winds carried faint laughter from the upper colony. Inside, two souls worked in defiance of it. The next dawn would bring new danger and new hope, because somewhere deep inside that workshop, the first heartbeat of a miracle was beginning to form. Morning came with the color of rust across the alien sky. The winds howled softly outside the colony dome, carrying the dry sand that whispered against metal walls. Inside Eli's small workshop, everything was quiet, too quiet. A thin line of smoke curled up from the workbench, where the new pair of arms lay glowing faintly in the dim light. Eli hadn't slept. His hands were blistered, his eyes red from welding sparks, but he didn't care. All that mattered was that the prototype, the Stardust arms, was finally ready for testing. Every wire, every glowing circuit, every atom of infused meteor dust had been shaped by his hands. Across the room, Lyra stirred awake from her corner. She blinked and sat up, rubbing her tired eyes with her forearms. "Is it done?" she asked softly. Eli turned toward her and nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "It's ready. You're ready." She stood slowly, trembling, not from fear but from something new. Hope. The kind she hadn't felt since she was born. He lifted the shining arms carefully from the table. The metal shimmered like liquid moonlight, laced with faint threads of gold that pulsed like veins. The joints moved silently, powered by a core no bigger than a coin that glowed blue with stardust energy. "They're beautiful," Lyra whispered. Eli smiled. "They're yours." He helped her sit down on the padded stool he had made from old seat foam. The procedure was delicate. Attaching human-built machinery to alien nerves was dangerous. But Eli's hands were steady. He fastened the braces gently around her shoulders, locking them into place. The magnetic cuffs clicked, and for a moment the workshop filled with a low humming sound. Lyra's breathing quickened. "It's warm," she said in wonder. "That's the stardust," Eli explained. "It's alive in its own way. Now, move your arms slowly. Don't rush." She hesitated, then focused. The light in the core flickered once, then again. The metal fingers twitched. Slowly, one of the hands lifted. "I can feel it," she gasped. "I can feel everything?" Eli grinned like a man seeing sunrise after years of night. "That's it. You're doing it, Lyra." She raised both arms now, awkwardly at first, then with more confidence. The glowing metal shimmered as she turned her palms upward. Her laughter filled the workshop, bright and pure. For the first time in her life, she had hands, but the joy lasted only a moment. Suddenly, the lights in the workshop flickered. The humming sound turned into a sharp crackle. The blue glow of the stardust core began to pulse wildly. Eli's smile vanished. "Wait, no, stop moving." "The core's overheating." Before he could reach her, a burst of energy exploded from the connectors. Lyra screamed as sparks flew across her arms. The metal turned red hot. Smoke filled the air. Eli grabbed the emergency release and tore the arms away, ignoring the burns on his hands. The sound of the explosion echoed through the room, followed by silence. Heavy, painful silence. Lyra fell forward into his arms, sobbing. Her shoulders were scorched, her skin glowing faintly from the energy discharge. Eli pulled her close, wrapping her in his jacket. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I've got you." But his words couldn't hide the truth. The experiment had failed. He looked at the table where the stardust arms lay broken. The once bright glow had faded to gray. The meteor core was cracked in half, releasing a faint hiss of dying energy. His chest ached with helpless rage. Later that night, as the colony lights dimmed, Eli sat alone at the table, staring at the shattered remains. Outside, he could still hear faint laughter from the upper streets. He imagined them mocking again, calling her no hands, laughing at the human who tried to play God. Lyra sat quietly nearby, wrapped in a blanket, her head lowered. "I told you it wouldn't work," she whispered. "They were right about me. I'm just broken." Eli's fist slammed the table, making her flinch. "Don't say that. You are not broken. I failed you, not the other way around." She looked at him with wet eyes. "Why do you care so much? You don't even know me." Eli stared at the shattered arms for a long time before speaking. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Because once on Earth there was a girl who couldn't walk. My sister. I built her braces from scrap metal. They worked until the city burned. I couldn't save her. I swore I'd never fail again. Lyra's lips trembled. And now you're trying again. For me? He nodded slowly. For you, for her. For everyone who was ever told they were worthless. She leaned her head against his arm, silent. For a moment, the broken workshop felt like the safest place in the galaxy. But just as the calm returned, a soft tremor shook the floor. The door sensors blinked red. Someone was approaching. Eli stood quickly, glancing at the monitor. His blood ran cold. Commander Vex was outside, flanked by 2 armed guards. He whispered sharply, "Hide, now." Lyra crawled beneath the workbench just as the heavy door burst open. Vex stepped inside, eyes scanning the smoky room. "I heard an explosion," he said coldly. "Care to explain, human?" Eli forced a smile. "Just a power surge." "Old equipment." Vex's gaze moved to the scorched table. "You've been experimenting again." He walked closer, boots clicking on the metal floor. "You never learn, do you?" Eli didn't move. "Some things are worth the risk," Vex sneered. "Not for a crippled alien girl." Eli's eyes darkened. "She's worth more than this whole colony." For a long moment, the 2 locked eyes. Then Vex turned and left, leaving only the echo of his voice behind. "Next time, human, you'll be exiled. Or worse." When the door closed, Lyra crawled out, shaking. "He'll hurt you." Eli looked at her and smiled faintly through the smoke. "Let him try. Because next time, I'll make sure it works." He turned back to the broken pieces, his mind already racing. There had to be another way, something purer, stronger. Then, outside the window, a streak of light flashed across the night sky. A meteor. Its glow was brighter than anything he'd ever seen. Eli whispered, "Maybe the stars aren't done helping us yet." And in that single spark of falling light, hope was reborn. The night the meteor fell, the sky burned like fire. A single streak of silver flame tore through the twin moons of Virelon and crashed into the outer dunes with a thunderous roar. The whole colony felt it. To most, it was just another piece of rock falling from the void. But to Eli, standing at his workshop window, it was something else. A sign. He grabbed his worn jacket and a small energy lantern, glancing once at Lyra, who was fast asleep on the cot. Her shoulders were still wrapped in bandages from the explosion. The failed arms lay shattered on the table beside her. For a brief second, Eli hesitated. Then he whispered, "Sleep, kid. I'll bring back your miracle." He stepped into the freezing night. The wind tore across the sand plains, howling like the voice of ghosts. The meteor's impact trail glowed faintly ahead, a river of light cutting through the darkness. Eli trudged forward, his boots sinking into the loose dust until he reached the crater. At the center, half buried in molten sand, was the meteor. It pulsed faintly, blue, gold, and white light swirling through its cracked surface like a beating heart. Eli knelt beside it and felt the heat against his gloves. "You're alive, aren't you?" he murmured. "Let's make something beautiful together." He pried a fragment loose and slipped it into his pack. When he turned to leave, the sand behind him shifted. For a moment he thought he saw shapes moving within the meteor's glow, tiny sparks forming patterns almost like whispers. But when he blinked, they were gone. By dawn, he was back in the workshop. Lyra was awake now, sitting quietly with tired eyes. "You went outside," she said softly. Eli smiled, placing the glowing fragment on the table. "I went to get the stars." She stared at the meteor shard in awe. "It's beautiful," he nodded, "and powerful. The material, it's not just metal or crystal. It's something alive. It bends to emotion, not just energy. That's why it can hold the bond between you and the machine." Her voice trembled. "You mean it can feel?" Eli looked at her with quiet conviction. "Maybe not like us, but it understands purpose, and right now its purpose is you." He began working immediately. The room filled with the rhythmic sound of grinding, soldering, shaping. He melted small portions of the meteor dust, mixing it with silver alloy and fusing it into the skeletal frames of the new arms. The metal shimmered with shifting light, as though tiny galaxies were trapped within it. Lyra helped where she could, passing tools, holding clamps, whispering encouragements that made Eli smile through his exhaustion. For the first time since arriving on this world, he didn't feel alone. After 3 days and nights, the work was complete. The arms rested on the table, sleek, elegant, and alive with a soft glow that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Eli looked at Lyra. Are you ready? She swallowed hard. Yes. He carefully attached the new arms, connecting each node with her nervous system. When the final clasp locked into place, the entire workshop went silent. The air shimmered faintly. The Stardust core began to glow brighter, threads of light racing through the metal. Try moving your hand, Eli whispered. Lyra focused. Slowly, one finger lifted, then another. Then her entire hand opened, smooth, graceful, natural. The glow from her arms lit up the room like dawn breaking. Her voice trembled. Eli, I can feel the air. He smiled. Then it worked. She lifted both arms, the light reflecting in her silver eyes. It's warm, she said. It's like... They're part of me. Eli nodded. They are, but it didn't end there. As she raised her hands higher, the light intensified. Small orbs of starlight floated off her fingertips, swirling in the air. The meteor's strange energy was responding to her emotions. Every time her heart beat faster, the glow grew stronger. She turned to him, tears streaming down her face. Eli, I'm not broken anymore. He felt a lump in his throat. You never were. At that moment, the door burst open. Commander Vex stood there, flanked by guards. His eyes widened at the sight before him. Lyra glowing like a celestial being, her arms alive with light. What is this? He shouted. What have you done, human? Eli stood between them. I built hope, he said simply. Vex sneered and raised his weapon. Hope is forbidden. Before he could fire, Lyra stepped forward. Her arms flared with energy. The starlight shot outward, deflecting the energy blast like water parting around stone. The guard stumbled back in fear. Vex glared, his voice trembling. You think this makes you one of us? Lyra raised her glowing hands. No, she said softly, her voice steady. It makes me more. The commander froze, unable to speak. The light from her arms washed over the walls, casting long, shining shadows that seemed to erase the years of cruelty in this place. Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. They'll come for us now, he said quietly. Lyra nodded, still staring at the trembling guards. Then we'll show them what humans and broken things can become. Outside, alarms began to wail. But inside the workshop, there was only peace. The calm that comes before revolution. Eli looked at the glowing meteor fragment still embedded in the table. It pulsed once, as if acknowledging what had just been born. He whispered, from dust to starlight, and as the sirens grew louder, Lyra lifted her new arms high, their light spilling through the cracked windows of the colony. For the first time in her life, she wasn't hiding her arms. She was showing the universe what it had made possible. The girl who once had no hands now touched the stars. The alarms howled through the steel corridors of the colony, their red lights flashing like angry eyes. The workers stopped what they were doing, whispering in confusion. Rumors spread fast. Someone said a human had defied the laws of Virion. Others said an abomination with glowing arms had been born in the lower sector. But no one truly knew. Inside the small workshop, Eli tightened the straps on his utility belt. The machines around him hummed softly, reacting to the pulsing light that filled the room. Lyra stood beside him, her new arms glowing brighter than ever. The faint patterns of stardust flowed beneath the surface like living veins, moving in rhythm with her heartbeat. They're coming, Eli said quietly. Lyra nodded, her expression calm but fierce. Then let them come. Through the workshop door, they could already hear the pounding boots of the colony guards. The air trembled with the low growl of electric rifles powering up. Eli's pulse raced, but he forced himself to breathe slowly. He had built ships under enemy fire, repaired reactors in collapsing orbit. But this moment, standing beside a once broken child now glowing like a goddess, felt different. The door slammed open. Commander Vex marched in, flanked by 6 guards. His expression was sharp as a blade, his voice cold. Eli, human of Earth, you are charged with violation of bioaugmentation laws, forbidden modification of alien anatomy, and conspiracy against the Colony Council. Eli didn't flinch. I built what you never dared to imagine, Vex sneered. You built a monster. At those words, Lyra stepped forward. Her eyes glowed silver blue, her voice trembling but strong. You called me broken. You laughed when I fell. But look at me now. Vex raised his weapon. You are a mistake. Lyra lifted her arms and the air shimmered. The light from her stardust veins burst outward in a radiant wave. Energy flowed across the room, knocking the guards back. Their rifles short-circuited, sparks flying across the floor. The light didn't burn, it pushed. It protected, Vex stumbled, shielding his face. What is this power? Eli stepped beside her, voice steady. It's humanity, he said. The kind that builds miracles when others destroy. The guards tried to recover, but the workshop itself seemed alive now. The meteor fragments embedded in the walls were responding to Lyra's energy. The air filled with floating motes of blue and gold, swirling like galaxies in miniature. Vex pointed toward her. Seize them. The soldiers hesitated. One of them, a young alien officer, lowered his rifle slightly. Commander? She's not attacking us. She's defending. Obey your orders, Vex roared, but another guard spoke up. Sir, her energy healed my wound. Look! He showed his arm where a burn scar had faded to clean skin under the light. The others froze. The moment cracked like glass. Lyra looked at them, her voice soft. You don't have to fight. You can choose something better. Her words hung in the air, glowing as if carried by the light itself. Eli could see it, the doubt spreading among the soldiers, the fear turning to wonder. But Vex was too far gone. His eyes blazed with hate. He grabbed a pulse cannon from his side and aimed directly at Eli. Then I'll erase the source of your hope. The blast fired, a brilliant flash of white. Lyra moved faster than thought. Her arms glowed like twin suns as she raised them in front of Eli. The beam struck, but instead of breaking through, it scattered into 1,000 threads of light that curved outward, painting the walls in starlit patterns. When the glow faded, she stood unharmed. Her voice was quiet, trembling, but full of power. No more cruelty. The cannon in Vex's hands melted from its own heat. He fell backward, eyes wide, speechless. Eli placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice low and steady. It's over, Lyra. She shook her head. No, it's just beginning. The workshop doors burst open, not with soldiers, but with workers, civilians, engineers. They had followed the light through the corridors. One by one, they stepped inside and saw what had happened. A child once mocked now stood radiant, her human-built arms glowing like stars, the symbol of something greater. The crowd fell silent. Then slowly someone began to clap. Another joined. Then more. Within moments, the sound filled the room, the sound of a world awakening. Eli looked around, disbelief in his eyes. They're cheering? Lyra smiled faintly. They see now. Commander Vex stumbled to his feet, shouting above the noise. This is treason. You'll destroy everything. Lyra turned to him, her light dimming to a soft glow. No, Commander. We'll rebuild everything. Guards lowered their weapons. Workers began chanting her name. Someone shouted, the human did it. He made hope real. For the first time, Viralone's lower colony shone not with artificial light, but with the glow of belief. Eli exhaled slowly, the tension leaving his body. He looked at Lyra, standing tall beside him, and said softly, You've done it. You gave them something no machine could ever build. Lyra turned her glowing hands upward. You built them, she said. But they built me. Above the colony dome, the meteor's remnants streaked again across the sky, scattering like stardust. It was as if the universe itself was watching, quietly smiling. The revolt had not been of war, but of hearts. A spark born in one broken workshop had now set an entire world alight. As the chants grew louder, Eli whispered to himself, Now they'll never call her broken again. And for the first time in the colony's long history, the word hope had a face, glowing, fierce, and undeniably human. Years passed. The colony of Virion, once a place of order and cruelty, now shone beneath twin moons like a new dawn. Where laughter once mocked the weak, songs now honored the brave. The streets that had echoed with cold commands now rang with the sound of children playing, their eyes filled with curiosity instead of fear. And in the center of it all stood a statue, two figures cast in silver light. A quiet human engineer and a young alien girl raising her shining arms toward the stars. People called her Lyra Starhands. Her story had become more than memory. It was legend. Eli still worked in the same workshop, though it had changed beyond recognition. The walls that were once cracked and dim now glowed with soft light. The same machines that once built weapons now crafted tools for healing. Workers from other colonies came to learn from him. Humans, aliens, hybrids. They came not because of orders, but because of hope. One morning, as the suns rose and their light poured across his workbench, Eli placed his tools aside and looked out through the window. Lyra was standing in the plaza, teaching a group of children how to shape small orbs of light from their hands. The energy that had once terrified the colony now flowed freely, a gift rather than a curse. The stardust within her arms shimmered softly as she smiled. Eli chuckled to himself. "You did it, kid. You changed them all." He still called her kid, though she was now a young leader wise beyond her years. She had spoken before councils, traveled to neighboring worlds, and shown them what compassion could create. The colonies had even sent a message to Earth, telling them about the human who built hope from stardust. For the first time, humans were no longer seen as intruders or mercenaries. They were seen as builders of miracles. But fame never changed Lyra. Every night she still came to the old workshop. She still called Eli teacher. That evening she arrived quietly, the sound of her glowing footsteps echoing softly against the metal floor. "You should rest," Eli said without turning around. "You've been leading half the system this week." She laughed, her voice carrying the same warmth it had years ago. "And you should stop pretending you're still young." He smiled and turned to face her. The lines on his face were deeper now, his hair more silver than black. "Maybe I'm getting old," he said, "but watching you out there makes me feel like time's running backward." She walked closer, placing her glowing hands on the table. "Do you ever regret it?" Eli raised an eyebrow. "Building your arms?" "No," she said softly. "Defying them. Risking everything. You could have been sent back to Earth, or worse." He thought for a long moment, then shook his head. "Regret? No, you know what I regret? That I didn't do it sooner." Lyra smiled faintly. "You always say the right things," Eli shrugged. "That's what humans do when they don't have better tools." They both laughed quietly. But the laughter faded when Lyra's expression grew serious. "The council wants to name the new space station after you," she said. "They're calling it Project Stardust. They say it's a symbol of human compassion." Eli blinked. "After me? No, no. You're the one who gave it life." She shook her head. "You gave me hands. I just used them." He looked at her for a moment, then said, "Then how about this? You tell them to name it for what really matters." She tilted her head. "What's that?" "Hope," he said simply. There was silence for a moment. Then she nodded, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Hope," she whispered. That night, as darkness fell, the colony gathered under the open dome for the annual celebration of light, a day that honored the night Lyra first raised her glowing arms to the sky. Thousands filled the plaza, holding candles and tiny glass globes filled with fragments of meteor dust. When Lyra stepped onto the platform, the entire colony fell silent. She looked down at her arms, their faint glow reflecting in her eyes, and then lifted them toward the heavens. "Once," she said softly, "they laughed and called me broken. But one human showed me that broken things can shine brighter than perfect ones. He didn't give me hands, he gave me purpose," the crowd murmured in awe. Eli stood in the back, unseen, smiling through the tears he didn't bother to hide. Lyra continued, her voice rising with quiet strength. "We are all made of the same dust, the same stars. What we do with that light decides who we are. So build, create, forgive. Because every spark you share makes the universe brighter." She opened her palms and streams of stardust light shot upward, twisting into the night sky. The stars above seemed to answer, shimmering like 1,000 tiny mirrors. For one eternal moment, the galaxy felt alive. After the ceremony, Eli returned to his workshop one last time. He sat at the old table, running a hand across the worn metal. On the surface, etched faintly, were the words he had carved years ago after that first failure. "No hands, no hope? We'll see about that." He smiled softly. When morning came, the suns rose higher than ever, and their golden light flooded the colony. They found him still sitting at his table, peaceful, a faint smile on his face. The tools were neatly arranged, the blueprints folded beside him. On his workbench lay one final gift, a small mechanical flower made of the same stardust alloy glowing gently. Lyra held it in her hands later that day, her tears falling on its petals. The flower absorbed the light and shone brighter. That night, when she raised her arms again, the colony swore the stars shimmered in a new pattern, forming the faint outline of a human and a child, standing side by side reaching toward the sky. And from that day onward, Across worlds and generations, people whispered the same story. They mocked her for having no hands. But a human built her hope, and together they built a legend. The legend of the Star Hands lived forever.